Can I please have a...
I need from you is a Big Mac. Can I get a large fry with the Coke on the side?
Also, can I please have a...
McFlurry.
This isn't just a new clothing brand. This is Kai Cenat trying to change who the internet thinks he is. And when a creator this big gets a rebrand wrong, it doesn't just look awkward, it can permanently change how people trust him.
What do you got on your head?
Long story, bro.
God, lumpy.
Chill.
Kai Cenat just tried to pull off the most delusional move a top streamer can make. Not another viral stream, not another celebrity collab, a full personality rewrite. After breaking records, pulling LeBron on stream, dominating Twitch, and cementing himself as the loudest, most chaotic face of live content. Kai disappeared, and when he came back, he didn't say, "I've got something bigger." He said he was quitting streaming, and for about 5 seconds the internet actually thought he meant it. But it wasn't retirement, it was branding. A hard-launch rebrand from chaotic internet gremlin to disciplined fashion visionary, reading books on camera with a stopwatch like he's training for the Olympics of literacy, carrying a leather journal around Paris Fashion Week like it contains the lost scriptures of creativity, announcing a clothing brand as if the entire industry has been waiting for Kai Cenat to save it. And that's when the internet didn't just laugh, they called it performative.
Fucking bro! What happened?
Because here's the problem with hard launch rebrands. You don't get to delete your old self. You don't get to scream on stream for 5 years, build a fan base off chaos, and then flip a switch and say, actually, I'm a serious designer now. The internet doesn't forget, and when you try to speed run maturity in front of millions of people, every awkward frame becomes a meme. This isn't just about clothes, and this is about Kai, trying to rewrite how the world sees him. And if this doesn't land, it won't just be a failed brand, it'll be the first real crack in his image. Now, let's be clear about something. Rebranding itself is not a bad thing. In fact, most long-term creators have to do it. You cannot be the same 19-year-old screaming at a monitor forever and expect longevity. The internet changes, audiences age, platforms evolve. The difference between a successful rebrand and a disaster is how it's introduced. And Kai didn't ease into it, he detonated it. Let's rewind. He ended his last streaming era at the peak, one of the biggest subathons ever, insane numbers, major celebrities, cultural dominance. That wasn't just success, that was myth building. When you hit that level, your next move defines your legacy. So he disappears. Months of silence. Which, by the way, is smart. Absence creates demand. The longer a dominant creator vanishes, the bigger the comeback has to be. But here's where it gets tricky. When you disappear at the peak, the audience expects evolution. They don't expect you to abandon the identity that made you peak in the first place. So when he comes back and opens with "I'm quitting streaming," the drama hits. It feels final. It feels bold. It feels like a man stepping away from the machine. Except it wasn't stepping away. It was stepping sideways. The quitting announcement morphs into a clothing brand reveal. A new journey. A new Kai. And that is where the rebrand officially begins. The first pillar of this transformation? Reading. Now, let me say something controversial. It is objectively good that Kai wants to improve himself. Reading more, learning, expanding vocabulary, working on discipline. That's positive. But the problem isn't the act, it's the presentation. He didn't just say, "I've been reading lately." He turned it into content. Timer visible, stopwatch on camera, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then flexing that time like it's a badge of honor. When you highlight the stopwatch more than the lesson, it doesn't feel internal. It feels staged. There are clips of him struggling with words, clips of him Googling definitions. And the internet did what it always does. It clipped it. It memed it. It questioned it. Not because reading is cringe, but because the rollout made it look like a performance of growth rather than growth itself. If he had simply documented progress without the theatrics, the reaction would have been different. But when you brand your improvement, people assume strategy. And once people assume strategy, sincerity gets questioned. Then comes the fashion pivot, the clothing brand, the journal, the aesthetic shift. This journal became the centerpiece of the rebrand. It's shown like a relic, teased like it contains genius, hidden behind wait lists, displayed dramatically, shot cinematically. And then he records himself journaling on a 3DS camera, which might have sounded artsy in someone's head, but online, it looked like a parody of seriousness. The grainy footage, the exaggerated framing, the contrast with old screaming clips. And that contrast is the real killer here, because rebrands fail when the gap between old identity and new identity is too extreme. Kai's old identity was loud, chaotic, hyper, viral, unfiltered. His new identity is controlled, focused, reflective, fashion-minded. That jump is massive, and when you try to make that jump in one announcement cycle, the audience experiences whiplash. Then we get the Paris Fashion Week clips, walking through events clutching the journal like it's sacred text, moving like the moment is historic, and maybe, for him it is. But for the internet, it's another meme opportunity. Because while he's trying to project serious designer energy, the algorithm is still pushing viral clips of him screaming on stream from last year. And here's the brutal truth about rebrands at scale. You don't outgrow your old clips just because you want to. You outgrow them when the new version consistently proves itself over time. Kai tried to compress that timeline, and that compression is why this feels forced. Now let's talk about the industry angle. Streaming is forgiving. If you're entertaining, you survive awkward phases. You can experiment live. You can pivot midstream. Your personality carries you. Fashion is not forgiving. Fashion doesn't care about your Twitch numbers. Fashion cares about product and credibility and perception. When you enter that space with a rollout already being mocked as performative, you are starting at a disadvantage. This doesn't mean the clothes will flop, but it does mean the narrative is fragile. If the collection drops and it's genuinely strong, everything changes. The jokes become early phase lore. The critics quiet down. The rebrand looks bold instead of desperate. But if the product doesn't hit, the performative label becomes permanent. And once your audience believes you're acting growth instead of living it, that sticks. This isn't about reading comprehension. This isn't about timers. This isn't about a journal. This is about identity. Kai isn't launching merch. He's trying to reposition himself culturally. From chaotic internet king to disciplined creative visionary. From screaming streamer to fashion figure. That shift requires time, and humility, and subtlety. 3 things that hard launch rebrands rarely have, and let's address something else. When you build your empire on chaos, your audience bonds to that chaos. They don't just consume it, they identify with it. They see you as the loud one, the unfiltered one, the unpredictable one. When you suddenly pivot to quiet introspection and high fashion seriousness, some fans don't feel inspired. They feel alienated, not because growth is bad, but because the transition wasn't gradual. It felt like a switch flip. And the internet does not trust switch flips, especially when they are introduced through dramatic fake retirements. That "I'm quitting streaming" announcement did damage. Because once you use dramatic language as a marketing hook, every future emotional beat becomes suspect. Was it real? Was it strategy? Is this growth or positioning? That's the question hovering over this entire rebrand. Now here's the uncomfortable part. Kai might actually love fashion. He might genuinely want to improve himself. He might genuinely be reading every day. But intention doesn't control perception. And perception is what decides whether rebrands succeed. Right now, he's in the most dangerous phase of transformation. The phase where the old identity is louder than the new one, where memes spread faster than mission statements, where skepticism outpaces support. If he doubles down on theatrics, the performative narrative wins. If he quietly builds product, shows real evolution, and lets time pass, the narrative can shift. But this is not a side quest. This is a gamble. Because if this rebrand collapses publicly, it won't just be Kai tried fashion. It will be Kai tried to be someone he's not. And that is infinitely harder to recover from. Rebrands don't fail because creators change. They fail because audiences don't believe the change. The internet isn't asking whether Kai can design clothes. It's asking whether this version of Kai is authentic, and authenticity cannot be announced. It has to be demonstrated over time, without spectacle. And right now, the spectacle is louder than the substance. So this isn't about whether the clothes sell. It's about whether the audience updates their mental file on Kai Cenat. Because once millions of people decide who you are, rewriting that identity is one of the hardest things you can attempt. And he just attempted it, publicly, loudly, and aggressively. Now we wait to see whether this rebrand becomes a legendary pivot, or the moment the internet decided it didn't believe him anymore. If this rebrand works, Kai levels up into a completely new lane. But if it fails, he doesn't just go back to streaming. He goes back as someone the internet doesn't fully believe anymore. And that's the hardest reputation to fix.